That was Levert Casanova. The more things change, the more they stay the same. There are a lot of similarities between what happened a few days ago with Kimberly Potter shooting Dante. There's a lot of similarities between her and Derek Chauvin. Both of them are from Minnesota, in Hennepin County, where Mike Freeman now currently is the district attorney. Mike Freeman, the district attorney of Hennepin County, who originally, when seeing the George Floyd video, he decided that there was not enough for him to charge. There was nothing actionable. Remember that? Remember that? And then that sparked days of protest. And curiously, the next day he went, you know what? There is something to charge. But everything was burned up, so they actually had to book them dudes on rubble because there was no police department anymore. That same district attorney had to be recused from the case because he was meeting with coroners in an attempt to probably try to craft some story that would work. He also, in 2019, the district attorney of Hennepin County, had to take a leave of absence for alcoholism. And it's interesting that the argument would be George Floyd's argument and his substance abuse problem, but not the district attorney, who obviously was so drunk he couldn't see a murder. Kimberly Potter and Derek Chauvin have a lot in common. They both, Derek Chauvin has 17 cases of abuse leveled against him. Kimberly Potter in 2019 shot a kid, autistic kid named Kyle. After 2 times they tried to use a taser, that they say that didn't work, and then she had to use lethal force. So it's interesting that 2 years later, when she needed a taser, she didn't know what one was. They have 2 things in common. They are people who have had dubious incidences, but they were not only not charged, but they were rewarded. Not only did they not get charged, they got rewarded. Kimberly Potter is a 25-year decorated officer in a force of about 45 people in Brooklyn Center. Brooklyn Center is a town of about 31,000 people, and there have been 6 murders by policemen between 2012 and 2020, and she has 2 of them. She is a third of the murders by police officers. Derek Chauvin, a number of cases, but these two have in common, that they knew that there were problems with them. They knew that things would happen. Were they rebuffed? Were they ostracized? No, they weren't. They were rewarded. Those 2 people were in charge of recruits. They were in charge of training new officers. And they were in charge of training new officers. When you look at what has happened, when you look at the fact that George Floyd, that was an innocuous stock, a misdemeanor. Then you have an officer who charges up and shows you what's going to happen. The same thing happened with Kimberly Potter. I'm going to show you how you deal with these niggas. I'm going to show you what happened, because they were rewarded. Mike Freeman saw what happened. Nothing to see here. They weren't charged. There was no deterring from them doing what their previous incidences. There was nothing to stop them. Not only were they not stopped, they were rewarded by being in charge of new recruits. You look at what happened to George Floyd and Derek Chauvin. You look how he's looking. You look at the confidence he has. Not only is he showing us, he's showing those recruits how it's done, how you treat black people, how you show these niggas on a very innocuous thing. A $20 bill, a fake $20 bill meets that level of force. The same thing with Dante. Was he pulled over for a shootout or a domestic violence or some type of violent history? No, he was pulled over for an air freshener. An opportunity to show these young people how you deal with these niggas. And both of them resulted in death. Both of them had incidences that should have been troubling, but not only were they not rebuffed, they were rewarded. They were given free reign over showing young minds. So you can be taught one thing in the academy, but I'm going to really show you how you deal with these people. Throw all that book stuff away, because when you're dealing with these people, I'll show you how it's done. And then you wonder why police departments all over the country are compromised. Because situation after situation, you'll see senior officers who've had dubious past in charge of these young recruits. And look at the looks of the young recruits. Is this okay to do? Can we do this? It must be, because the senior officer is telling me I can. We don't have bad apples. We have a bad orchard. We have a factory that produces these things. Matthew 7:16-20 says, by their fruit you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus, by their fruit, you should recognize it. If we have these incidences over and over by men and women who exhibited brutal behavior, and now they're in charge of shaping these new police officers' mind, we don't have bad apples. We have a bad orchard. And by their fruit, you will know them. That's a little note from the GED section. We got the Jazz Report coming up in 15 minutes. It's the D.L. Hughley Show.